let's get started in doing some formulas. If you think we weren't doing formulas, we haven't. We're doing a lot of formulas today. We're going to start with some date and time formulas, and we're going to just kind of manipulate date and time. Now keep in mind that throughout the class, I'm going to be making mistakes. And some of those mistakes are on purpose to make you think more. Some of them are on accident, but I won't tell you the difference. I'll just make it look like I know what I'm doing. I did that on purpose. But the fact is that I need you to kind of think through this a little bit. If you're just watching my screen right now, I think you need to try to get some hands-on experience with this. Try to open up the sheets and try to work through it a little bit. And getting some hands-on experience will help you understand how to deal with syntax issues and formulas. And everything's got to be in a perfect shape in order for this to work. So we're going to go through and we're going to talk about the today function, the now function. We can talk about the year function, maybe the month and the day function, and maybe we'll talk about the weekday function. And there's a lot of other date-related functions in here. There's a workday, there's a choose function, there's a date function, there's days, there's network days, there's ISO, weekdays. There's a lot of different functions out there to manipulate dates. But the ones we use the most are probably the today, the now, and the years, and the month. Probably the most. Let's go take a look at that. We're going to open up a new file. I'm going to go to File, Open. I'm going to browse. And now, if you've gone there one time, it should actually navigate straight to the data folder, into the level 2 folder. So we want to open up the file called date. Now, this information is located in the book. And we can show you where that is. Open up that file. So in the beginning of the chapter, I mentioned that open up a certain file, and we're going to open up a file called date. And I tell you where it is, what the path is, and I say open up example 1. So that's where we're going to start. And I've put a lot of examples in here, but we're going to start with just this one sheet, and we're going to actually use these functions. So hopefully you have this file open. And we're going to go through and manipulate some dates. Here's some dates here. We're going to start looking at this higher date. Let me move the screen over a little bit because I don't need any of that stuff with this particular sheet. So I move like this so I can get more screen space. And I can actually make this a little bit bigger just so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so what we're going to do, and that pound sign indicates that the column isn't wide enough. So if you get this pound sign that I did here, you can move this over a little bit until that date fills in. Okay, so we're going to talk about our years of employment. To do this, we're going to actually type in our today function. I'm just going to do this as an example. So if I type in today with parentheses around the back side, then that's going to actually pull the current clock off the computer. Put it in there. So there's my today function. The other function is a now function. So I say equals now. And you put parentheses around the back side. You have to put the parentheses in. And hit return. It looks like it wasn't wide enough for the field. So if I widen that field out a little ways, I can see that it puts in both the date and the time. So the now function does the date and the time, and the date function just does the current day. If you need to keep track of the actual time something is done, use the now function. We're going to come down to years of employment. Essentially, the bottom line of years of employment is the subtracting the today function from the higher date. And that's going to give you the difference between those two dates. So we'll simply go in here and press an equal sign. And we're going to say today, with our parentheses, and you subtract that from, use your reference, and you click on E6, and that actually references that field. And that's going to give us the number of years of employment. We'll go ahead and hit return. Let's see what we get. Did we get years of employment? quite a few years, more years than I was expecting. So the question is, what happened? What went wrong? And what is that giving us? The result of a subtraction like this will always return the number of days. It does not give you years. So you have to manipulate the formula to get years. So I'm going to go back into the formula. I'm going to put a parenthesis in front of the t. And after the 6, that's going to come up with that number of days. And how many days are there in a year? You have to divide by 365. So that will give you the number of years. So you're going to divide by 365. So you have to do a little bit of math manipulation to get what you're looking for. Now the question I have for you, try that out. Make sure you put a parenthesis in front of the t and at the end of E6, and then divide it by 365. If anybody has a problem, be sure and let me know, because I can flip over and take a look at your computer to help you through the formula or walk you through some of maybe the syntax issues that you put in. Question I have is, does that number take leap year into account? So I have a return on that. See, it gave me 18.99 years. Double click on that. If you put at the back of 365, the number is 0.25. Then that means for every year, it's going to add another quarter of a day. You add 4 quarters together, you're going to get 1 day. So if you add 0.25 on there, it was 18.99 if I remember right. 18.98. So it did change a little bit, but slide them out. When you're done, you can use your fill handle, double click, and it fills it down. And so that's essentially how you would manipulate date fields to accomplish this. So now we're going to do our 10-year anniversary. We're going to say equals a higher date, and then we're simply going to add 10 years to it. So that's going to give us our 10-year anniversary. The point I want to make is you have to look at the answers very carefully, because you can't just assume that you're always going to do it correct. So when I look at these numbers, you notice here that it only gave me 10 days. So something went wrong. But you have to kind of look at your answer to see, is that number look reasonable? Or maybe knowing what the answer is going to be in certain cases, then you can do that. So you have to kind of verify the answer and just kind of double check it yourself and question yourself. On this case, the problem is that we are only doing 10 days. So we have to add to E6 the total number of days that includes 10 years. So we're going to multiply this times 365. If you want to put the 0.25 on there, you can do that too. And we're going to multiply it 10 times 365. The total of those number of days are going to be added to E6. And that's going to give me my 10-year anniversary. We're also using the order of operations that we talked about in the level 1 class. It's always going to do multiplication and division first, and then it's going to do your addition second. So it will multiply this number first before it adds it. If you want to clarify that, I can click on this, put a parenthesis around this just to make sure that if somebody does not understand that, then that would make it more certain if somebody's reading this formula to understand how that works. Here we go. So then we're going to come to this, double click, and we can fill it down. Now we're going to talk about the year function, the month function. We're going to talk about the day function. You can use either one of these. In this case, we're going to use just the year. You just simply say year, and you open your parenthesis up. You click on the hire date, and all I want is the year attribute out of those. It's a pretty simple formula, so just hit your enter key, and it will fill it down. And there's my 2001. I can double click on that and fill that down. It goes all the way down. All I want is the year function. Maybe what I want is the month function or the day function. So I want to know what year they were hired and find out if there was a year that was most predominant where the growth of the company occurred. Or if I want to use the month, I want to find out what month people were hired in. Is there a seasonal type of hiring thing? Do they hire more in the summertime or more in the wintertime? I can understand that from the database. I can also look at it from a day perspective to find out what day of the month people were hired. Are they hired more towards the beginning of the month or the end of the month? Is there some sort of trend that I can kind of pull out of the system? The weekday function is just exactly what that is. I'm going to say equals weekday, and this is going to pull the day of the week out of the hire date. And that's all you have to put in there is just plug in the hire date, and it's going to give you a 1 that represents Sunday, and 7 represents Saturday. So a 2 would be Monday. And so this is going to tell you the day of the week they were hired. So say, for example, I'm going to do a HR orientation, and I want to run that orientation every week. But what day of the week predominantly is the most hiring day? I'm assuming it's Monday, but I don't know if that's true. It's possible it's Tuesday or Wednesday. But maybe I'm new to the company and I just want to go look and see and make the right decision. So I want to find out what day of the week they were hired in. So I hit return on that. Do something wrong here. Oh, I tapped 2 E's in there. Too many E's. So it's just weekday. You have to spell it correctly. Okay, so it looks like that 2 is a Monday. It looks like there's more Mondays than there are any other days of the week. So that looks like it's probably the right choice. It's Mondays. I can do this orientation on that Monday. So that's a little bit about how the weekday works. Now you notice this one at the bottom down here, there's a date missing, as you can see. And so that's going to tell you that if you put your birthday in there, that's going to tell you what. So if you don't know the day you were born, then this is going to tell you the day you were born. So go ahead and throw your birthday in there, and that will tell you, this number then will represent the day of the week you were born. So the question that came up with Monica was that if you type in this date, these formats will change every time you open up this file. So in this particular case, we do want these numbers to change because we want to know the actual 10-year anniversary based on when we open up the file. I don't want to know what it was when I first created it. I want to know actively right now. But her question was saying that, what if I want the current date, but I want it to be a static date? And I don't want it to update on a regular basis. That's what she's basically asking. This is how it works. There are ways you can do that. Now in Word, there's an option that allows you to add a date and say it's static or dynamic. But there's not that capability in Excel. So there is ways to do that. If you come back to the level 3 class, we're going to show you how to create a macro. And we can create a macro to put a date in and have the macro put a date and actually convert it to a static date. So how you would essentially have to do that is you can select For example, I can select all these dates here like this. I can copy them, and then I can paste them back on the same place, but I'm going to use a paste special. I'm going to use this option called values. That will paste them as a value, not as a formula. So that would be one way to work around this. And now these are no longer, I'm going to hit the escape key to get rid of that marquee. You see, these are no longer formulas. These are actual static dates. So how you'd have to do that is you'd have to go up and copy it and then paste it special. You can write a macro to do this, so you can do it in one command. If you do it manually, you can go up and do this and copy and paste it with a space special. So I hope that answered your question, Monica. Okay, that's kind of what we wanted to cover on these particular features. Let's go through and open up another file. Let's start talking about our text manipulation. Let me jump over to the book. So here's our formula. We're talking about date and time functions here. And then you page down a little bit to the next section, which is going to be text manipulation. So we're going to walk through a few text functions so you can see how to manipulate text. And then we'll move on to some other sections and different sections covering different formulas. So the file we want to open up now is called text. So you just simply go to File, Open, Browse, and then come down to the C drive in the data folder, Excel 365-2 folder, and choose the file called text. And this is the file. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see my screen a little bit better. And we're going to basically do some manipulation of some of these text strings. We're going to concatenate them together. We're going to patch them together. We're going to do various things like that. So let me come over and talk about some of these functions. So we're talking about the left function. And all the left function is documented right here, how it works, what it is, the mid function, the right function. We're going to talk about the concatenate function. Now the concatenate is spelled two different ways. In the older versions of Excel, it's called concatenate, but in the newer versions, they actually renamed it concat. So I've even seen newer versions that are spelled concatenate, because if they did possibly an upgrade or something like that, so somehow you'll find either name in there. We have to kind of determine which your system is. We're also going to talk about an ampersand character, which is called a patch character, how you would patch things together using a character code. And then there's several other functions of like the proper function, the upper function, the lower function. There's a lot of other text functions, but the white sections we're going to focus on. This is called the text to column function, and we're going to talk about how we would convert it to text. Now we're not only going to talk about how to patch things together, we're also going to talk about how to split them apart. So we'll get into both of those. Let's go back to Excel. And in the Excel area, we're going to open up this file. Hope you've got the file open, text.txlsx. And we're going to start in this field here. So we're going to start with our left function. So I'll type the word left. So those are the three functions we're going to be using, the left, the right, and the mid. We're going to start with just the left function, but these are some we could use. So what I want to do is I want to extract the first letter off of the word Erica. From the left side, take one character. So we're going to press our formula and say equals left, open parenthesis. And the input, or the first parameter down here, says the text field. And the second parameter says the number of characters we want to pull. So first we want to put Erica as a reference, B5, comma, and then how many characters do we want to pull from the left side? One character. Now this is a pretty simple formula, so we can just hit the enter key. We don't have to put our close parenthesis on there. When the formulas get a little more complicated, you got to consider putting that parenthesis on there. And there's my E. I can click on that fill handle and double click on that, and it pulls the first character off of every single first name. We're going to use the right function to pull this extension off of the office location. So the last 4 digits of the office location is the extension at that physical location. So we're going to use the write function to do that. So we say equals write. The input to the write function is going to be this lab number here, C5, comma, then how many characters do we want to pull from the left side? 4 characters. So if you choose that 4 characters on there and you pull 4 characters from the left side, you can see that it's going to give you exactly what you asked for. If you double click, you can fill it down. So now we're going to do a concat function, a concatenate function, or concat, depends on which system you have. And the concatenate function, that's the name of it. It's also spelled concat. This, okay. And what I want it to look like is this, is I want to patch Erica and Decker together. So it's going to say Erica space Decker. So I want to take those 2 fields and patch them together. Now part of what we're doing here is we're by doing the left, right, and mid function, you might like have a part number you might want to split into 2 pieces. Or you might want to take apart a name or something like that, or some information that you want to split it at a certain point. Now we can take those things that we split up and we can combine them together. So in this case, we're going to take the first name and we're going to concatenate it to Decker. So we're going to simply start with clicking this blank field here, and we're going to go to the FX, and we're going to look for the concatenate function. Now, if you type the word concatenate here, you can do that and search for it. Or you can come down to the text category, and you should find the concatenate function. And so mine is spelled concat. Yours might be concatenate. But then click on the concat function and say OK, and it's going to give you this dialog box. So now we're going to simply say, what text field do we want first in this list? Well, I want Erica first. So you don't type Erica, you click on text 1 box, you use your mouse and you click on B5. You want to reference that information. Now the second text box is not going to be Decker. What do we want in between Erica and Decker? A space. So I'm going to press the space right there and then go to the third box. So it puts a little double quote around there and puts a little space in between the 2. The third text box is going to be a reference to A5. And you can see the little example that pops up in the formula bar that tells you if you forget the space, they'll be bunched together. We just patch those 2 things together. Say OK, and there's Erica Decker. Now, we're going to do this a different way. I'm going to take and concatenate again, but I'm going to use a different command to do this. This is using the concatenate function. But now we're going to use what's called an ampersand sign. And the ampersand sign is actually a shift 7 key. So we're going to use this ampersand to concatenate things together. And what I want it to look like is Decker, comma, Erica. So down here we're going to simply say equals, and we're going to reference Decker, and then we're going to put our ampersand in here. And that ampersand then is going to patch things together. So then we'll put in a double quote, and we're going to put a comma, space, double quote. That's our second character. And then we're going to put another ampersand, shift 7, and then we're going to reference Erica. So there's no spaces in between the ampersands, but there is a space in between the double quotes. So we've got A5, ampersand, double quote, comma, space, double quote, and then another ampersand, a patch character, and then press 5. Now this ampersand is a more commonly used command in most program languages. So you see it patches Eric together. The concatenate function is just something that Excel created to make things a little easier. So if you use this a lot, you'll probably end up leaning towards the ampersand. If you don't use it very much, then maybe the concatenate function would be easier because then you'll just save you some time. I use this all the time, and the reason why I use it, I can actually do this quicker by just typing it in and patching things together. Matter of fact, I can probably do it faster than you could spell the word concatenate. I can have it be done that fast, you see, because I can find it faster than you can find the concatenate function in the FX. I just do it for speed because I know how to do it, and that's how I operate. Now, the reality of all this is that we need to start combining things together. So now what I want to do is I'm going to type in e.decker. So I'm going to start combining some of these commands together. I'm going to use the left function to extract the first letter, and then I'm going to use the concatenate function to patch it together. So I'm going to come down here. Our first command is going to be my left function, and then the input to the left is going to be Erica, comma, 1. That's my first character that I'm going to put in. I'm going to use an actual formula. And then I'm going to press my ampersand. And what do I want in between Decker and Erica? I want a dot space. So I'm going to put a double quote, dot space, double quote, and another ampersand. And then I'm going to patch to Derek Decker. This is the first character of E, and then I'm going to patch it with a dot space in between those two. And then I'm going to patch in my A5, which is my Decker. And that simply is what that works. So here we're going to go to a proper case. So we can do a proper, upper, and lower. So uppercase, proper case, lowercase. You can use those three. We're going to just use the proper case because I want Decker to have a, I don't want it to be all uppercase. And you can use this for like if you're going to have like states, for example, and you find states in your databases, upper and lower case, then you might want to switch them all to uppercase or something like that. So I'm going to say equals proper. Now this isn't actually what I would do, but I'm going to show you this first. There's my proper case. And then I'm going to, I can fill it down so you can see it. But this isn't really what I'd like to do because the reason why is I use 2 columns to accomplish one result. If I were to click on this and put the proper case right in front of the left function, put it proper like that, and then I simply closed it like that, then you can get this way too. So this is going to actually put the proper case right in the concatenate function. So now we're using the left function and the concatenate function along with the proper function. And so this is kind of where we want to go today, is start learning how to combine formulas together to come up with one big result rather than have to do it in multiple columns. If I hit return on that, I can fill this down, and you can see how you pull that down. So now what we want to do is we're going to take, well, we can take probably the G. Let's take G. If you didn't do G, then do F. If you didn't do F, then do one of the others. Anything that has combined information in here. But I'm going to choose G. I'm going to copy G and paste it. And this is an important little feature of all this. So we're going to copy this G column, the column, not the cells, the G column. I'm going to slide out to the right out here, and I'm going to paste it, but not a normal paste. I'm going to choose a paste special. I'm going to paste it using the values option. Is it okay? Now I just pasted the value of that formula. The formula is no longer there. All the results of the formula are now there. So I did this for a reason. One is to show you that sometimes you want to strip out the formula completely. Other times you want to, maybe we want to split this column into two columns. So let's say you have a mail list, and one mail list has the stuff in one column, and the other mail list has it in two columns. So you're saying, well, I like to combine these two mail lists, but they don't match. So I'd like to take the one column field and break it into two columns. So that can be done. So you click on resulting paste special values, come up to the data tab here, and there's an option here called text to columns. So I'll give you one guess what this is going to convert the text to. Multiple columns. So I click on this thing called text to columns. It comes back and says, okay, do you have a fixed distance here? Every text, is there a fixed position? The break is going to be in a different position. So I have to use what's called a delimiter. Now that delimiter, if I say next, it's going to say, okay, what is that delimiter that separates the two fields? Well, it's not a tab, but it is a comma. And you see how it actually found it there. In this particular case, we can do a comma space, a double delimiter, so that it will actually take that space out of the front of the area. At this point, you can just say finish. There are a few other parameters that you can look at in the next page, some date parameter, some conversion utilities. If there are some errors, then you can maybe go back and try it again and look at some additional options. But right now, we're just going to choose finish, and it actually breaks the two columns. So we went both ways with the subject. We concatenate or pull them together. We also split them apart. So those are the two things you can do by manipulating text. And so all this is written in the book. So don't think that you're going to, oh, I'm not going to remember all this stuff, right? Keep in mind that it's all in the book. So here's my functions here. Here I went down here. It says text to columns. And it actually started off with, it looks like I'm doing some stuff here, and I'm giving you some examples there. So that's how that works. So that's a little bit about text functions. Okay, now there are other functions we can talk about. I'm going to skip over some of these because there's a lot of details in here. And these are like financial functions. This is an FX function that does the future value. It's for like investment purposes. And this is a payment function that determines the monthly payment of a mortgage and stuff like that. So there's a few. I put quite a few in there of just financial. Sometimes I have people that have an interest in those formulas. This one here is called information formulas. This is the if-error is what we're going to focus more of our attention on. And we have that in the next example. We'll touch on that. But there's a lot of other information. This says, what is the information, meaning what is this information? So what do I have? In this case, I can say, if it's a blank, tell me if it's a blank. If it's an error, tell me if it's an error. And there's several others in there we can use. The product function, this is a math function. This product function is like a sum function, but you can multiply things up using the product function. So it multiplies this times this times this time. So there's a few other math functions, and there's some number conversion numbers. If you have numbers that you convert across from some database and the number gets converted to a text and not a number, there's ways you can convert things back to a number automatically. So if it comes a text field or something like that. There's some rounding functions in there. If you have an interest in that, you can go try out some of these examples. But I'm going to focus more on the things that I think a lot of people have a real interest in,